You've got questions on Ozempic, we've got answers. In this video, we're going to go over everything that you need to know about this popular fat loss drug. Hey guys, Coach Tim and Alisha here with Fit Couple Coaching, and today we want to touch on the topic of Ozempic, Mounjaro, the other GLP-1s. We get a lot of questions about these, especially concerning fat loss, the fitness industry, and today we are going to unzip it and fully transpose all the things good, bad, ugly, questions that you might have, who it's for, highs, lows, and everything in between.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes. So you ready for this?
Yes, absolutely. So just so you guys know, we are going to be completely transparent here, or at least I will. I know my wife will too. She doesn't have really much to be transparent about. There's a lot of information that has been misrepresented in the fitness industry in general around fat loss, etc. And there's a lot of stuff that these fitness influencers use that might make their job just a little bit easier, and they're trying to sell you that it's their booty workout or their special diet, when in all reality those are part of it, but they're using some assistance as well. So we thought this would be a great way to start a series of talking about just complete transparency about what tools are at their disposal, and kind of give you guys some education around the pros and cons of what they do. But we're going to start with the most popular one right now, which is Ozempic, or the classification of GLP-1s, because I feel like that one needs the most attention right now.
Yes. So, and one reason why I'm asking Tim a lot of these questions, it is something that whether you know it or not, day or night, as long as he is awake, he is educating himself and further educating himself on all the things health, fitness related.
And with the exception of Ozempic, I've probably used the vast majority of these things as well.
Right.
So I haven't used the GLP-1s, but I've used a lot of other things. So I've trialed a lot of it too. So it's not just
personal experience.
It's not just the head knowledge. I've actual experience with a lot of these things too.
Right. And this just kind of came to mind. We were literally talking, after dinner one night, just about different things. We get clients that ask questions all the time about this, and we always try to, we never steer them one way or another. We always give them the information, try to educate them on our knowledge of it, and let them make a decision from there. So maybe let's just kick it off by saying, or maybe me asking you, what your take is on why it is such a popular fat loss drug. Like, why are so many people going that route?
I think it's a really good question. But before we dive into the nuts and bolts, I think it's important to note that neither one of us are medical doctors. This is just coming from our experience and what we've seen and what we've done and what we've seen play out in the real world. So take all of this as just like N=1, our anecdote. If you are serious about taking a GLP-1 or any other fat loss medication, please consult your physician. Hopefully they're a good physician. But without further ado, the answer to your question is it works. I think that's the simplest answer. In fitness, as well as in business and money, and people want a quick fix, right? We want something that works, and people will always want something that they can take or inject, or a supplement, a pill, powder, potion that will do the work for them over putting in the work themselves. Not that they won't put in the work themselves, but they're always going to be drawn to the easier route, the route of least resistance. Not that that's a bad thing, but this has worked for a lot of people, so of course it gets
a lot of traction.
It has a lot of marketing behind it, but it also has a lot of word of mouth behind it too. So you talk to your friends like, oh my gosh, I lost so much weight in a short period of time using this drug. Well, your brain starts to think what about me?
Right.
So I think that's the main reason why it's so dang popular right now.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. What is it about Ozempic that is effective? How does it with the body? How is it effective for people when it comes to fat loss?
So Ozempic, the actual drug name is semaglutide or semaglutide, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. It is what's called a GLP-1 agonist, and effectively it's a ghrelin-like peptide. So that's science jargon. Effectively, what it does is it it mimics satiety within your stomach. So it actually sends a signal to your brain that you're full. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it actually does slow gastric emptying, meaning you eat some food, you fill it faster because you have the sensation of being full, and it takes longer for that food to clear out of your stomach. So the sensation is real, and you're not processing food as fast. Therefore, you eat less, and you lose weight by proxy of eating less. So there's no magic that's going on here. It's just a very artificial way of reducing calories. In fact, the whole classification of drugs is actually what are called anorectics, which is a kind of a funny, they're called anorectics. It was originally intended for blood sugar management with diabetes, and it actually is a very potent blood sugar management like tool, but it has a great little side effect that it kills your appetite and you lose weight, which also again has a side effect of improving blood sugar, because when you lose body weight, your insulin sensitivity gets better, etc. It's kind of like Viagra was not originally intended to be like a boner pill. It was actually a blood pressure medication that had a side effect. It was a very poor blood pressure medication that had a great side effect. And they're like, this drug is not going to sell because there's actually a lot of really good blood pressure meds out there, but it will sell in another way. Context. So they actually developed a marketing campaign around it, developed the disease ED. It was not in the medical literature before that, and they sent out a sales team to talk doctors into prescribing it, and it was instantaneous. It was a freaking hit. Yeah. Very similar to Ozempic, just without the side effects like that.
Okay, so let's talk about maybe the good and the bad when it comes to someone who uses Ozempic, and then maybe also who it's for, who it's not for. Whichever order you want to attack that.
Yeah, so I think with any fat loss medication, whether it be, or even in supplement for that matter, there are tools in our tool belt, right? They will never replace a good nutrition, good diet, and physical activity. They just won't. However, the type of people that Ozempic is for, I think that's probably the camp that I want to start with, the question I want to start with. Is it's really for people that kind of fit these few criteria. Number one, they have a lot of weight to lose. And I don't have a number, but if their weight is a problem, meaning it's causing health detriments to them. So you've got your people who are obese, morbidly obese, and severely overweight. The second camp is those that have blood sugar control problems. So that would mean, maybe their hemoglobin A1C is high, like 5 point something or higher. They have diabetes, or their fasted insulin through the roof. They need to do something to start controlling their blood sugar better. And then the third is those that have a lot of trouble controlling their appetite. So they might be people who over-secrete ghrelin naturally, or they have a high dopamine response to food. And we all know these people. I am one of these people, like 1,000%.
That I've ever met.
That's why I learned how to train really hard. So the people that can't control their appetite, they can't control the food noise that's going on in their head, and they find themselves binging a lot. It does have a very powerful effect for those people and kind of turning that volume down. So that's the camp I would say it's for, that it has a lot of efficacy for.
And just to clarify before you go to the next one, so you said obese, you're not going to put a number on it, but if you've got, somebody coming to you that just wants to lose like 20 or 30 pounds.
I don't consider that obese. That's like you have a little bit of weight to lose. You're not even that overweight.
Okay.
However, if that person has 10 to 20 pounds to lose, but they have bad blood sugar, or they have an eating disorder where they are binge eating disorder, it might be efficacious. So I'm not saying they have to check all the boxes, but they need to have one of those reasons to use the medication. So like with anything, if I'm putting together like a roof, I need a hammer to hammer the nails. But if all I have screws and I grab a hammer, that's like not the right tool for the right job. So I see this in the same light. We need to use it for the right job.
Okay.
The flip side of that, who it's not for, are those that, honestly don't have. For one, this is kind of just like, I would put a prereq on this. You should be following a good nutrition plan, specifically eating plenty of dietary protein. You also should have some sort of resistance training in your life on a weekly basis. It doesn't have to be like me, Mr. Bodybuilder, that is training 5-6 days a week for 2 hours. But you need to have at least, let's say, 1 to 3 days a week minimum of good resistance training. And the reason I'm saying that is because one of the main side effects of these GLP-1s is lean body mass loss.
Yeah.
Right. So and this is the same as if you went on a harsh diet, like you crashed your calories and you didn't work out.
Right.
We saw this with the HCG diet that came out like a decade ago, or any other crazy fat loss diet. Is people tend to lose just as much muscle mass as they lose fat mass, and that doesn't help us. Actually, it makes us more unhealthy, more metabolically inefficient. So it actually perpetuates the problem. So that would be the first camp, that you just have to have good nutrition and have some sort of resistance training in your life.
Well, and to that point too, with you talking about the muscle mass loss, most of the people that we see that are even looking at this are our older population, and we start losing muscle mass in our late 20s, early 30s anyway. So
yeah, I would push back on that a little bit, because there's no reason to lose muscle mass if you have this stimulus for keeping it around.
Okay.
There is what's called, like, you do have some type of resistance to muscle protein synthesis. It's called anabolic resistance as you get older, but that really doesn't set into like your 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Okay.
And really, you can still circumvent that by eating more dietary protein and making sure that you resistance train a little bit more frequently, right? So these aren't like life sentences or death sentences, you know. So, you know, the reason that people lose muscle mass in their 30s and 40s is because of their lifestyle
habits.
Yeah, so it's the same exact conversation. So making sure you have a good nutrition plan and making sure that you're getting resistance training, that falls with any diet. Ozempic just happens to be in that same camp. So that would be the group of people that is like, okay, if you're doing that, okay, then maybe you qualify if you also are checking one of these other boxes on the other side. But if you don't fall in any of those boxes, and you're not eating enough protein, and you're not like even like doing any resistance training at all, it's probably a pretty bad idea.
Right. So what you would suggest is focus on the lifestyle first. But even if they go the Ozempic route, they need these lifestyle habits, especially because of some of the side effects.
So let's use an example here. Like, let's say we had a really bad fight at home, and you shot me in the leg with a gun, with a 45. Like, you put a big old bullet hole in my leg.
I'm gonna throw up, but yes.
So I'm gushing blood everywhere, and I reach and I grab a Band-Aid, and I stick the Band-Aid over the bullet hole wound. You can't see the bleeding anymore. But did I solve the problem? No, I'm still probably going to bleed out and die. Or at least get a massive infection and lose my leg.
Okay.
Right? So if we throw Ozempic at a problem and we're not doing the foundational work underneath it to fix this, if you're, you know, on either side of the fence, whether you have a lot of weight to lose or you don't, you still should be doing that foundational work of lifestyle change. I think that that's very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go to some of the camps you said it could be useful for, and maybe paint the picture of the difference of not making a change versus using something like Ozempic. If somebody has a lot of weight to lose, you know, what are the benefits to the rapid weight loss, even if they do have some gastric, you know, distress or, you know, muscle loss and things of that nature?
Yeah, so like, let's say if someone came to me that was obese, that wanted to start using one of these GLP-1s, mind you, Ozempic's not the only one nor the best one. I would entertain the idea 1,000%. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I would say, hey, if your doctor thinks it's a good idea, wants to write you a prescription, by all means, but let's just use it intelligently. And I still want to put that as an adjunct to treatment with good nutrition, good exercise, and a continual changing of lifestyle behaviors, so that by the end of this road, you have built some good habits and you can make them more sustainable, right? So when I think about, you know, starting someone, like, let's say they're really, really large, like we talked about, they already have a lot of health risks to begin with, right? So whether that's heart disease, you know, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, like there's a lot of morbidity and mortality associated with being very large. And I would say that those are much higher of a risk factor than a little bit of gastroparesis down here, which gastroparesis is just like I guess it's more like paralysis of the nerves within your gut that help, you know, digestion go smoothly and gastric emptying happening. So I think it's like a cost analysis. And I think that the cost of being very overweight is much higher than the cost of maybe some stomach upset, which is, it's not guaranteed. That's a risk. That's a risk factor, right? So I would say that that's something I would lay out.
Okay, and we'll get to a different type of cost later because I wanted to go into this next. So we've talked about the fact that Ozempic and semaglutide is not the only type. What are some of the others that are out there, like Mounjaro or those coming up? And maybe we could speak to differences and just educate them a little bit more.
Yeah, so Ozempic is actually the third generation of these GLP-1 agonists. They all have the "ide" at the end of them. So that is semaglutide. The next iteration was what is it? Tirzepatide would be the next one. That's the Mounjaro, the Zepbound, like the next wave. Okay. And that's the newest one that's on the market right now is that iteration. And what they've kind of done with each iteration, they've just gotten a little bit better at giving you the effect, the desired effect, without quite as many of the negative side effects or the adverse effects that come along with the medication. So with Ozempic, like the adverse side effects was a lot of nausea, some bloating. Some people complain about feeling like they have like a brick in their stomach, especially when they eat foods that aren't like very healthy, like a lot of like high calorie dense foods. Like it tends to bloat the heck out of them, and so they lose weight virtually as a byproduct, just not feeling very good. Like when you're sick, when you're sick, you just can't get anything down.
Yeah, you and I do naturally with autoimmune diseases.
It's kind of like the same thing. But like tirzepatide, the next iteration of that, like think about the dial on the side effects or the adverse effect just got turned down a little bit. So now we have a little better effect to adverse effect like ratio. And then there is another one it's still in clinical trials that has been used underground within the fitness community called retatrutide or retatrutide, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And again, it's just another level like that they just turned it down a little bit more, but they've also added what's called a GIP. So it's like glucagon agonist, which actually helps with fat loss. So it's like you get all these cool effects of like blunting appetite and slowing down digestion, but then you also add a fat loss agent to it at the same time. So it tends to be even more pronounced with the weight loss for less side effects. And I'm not trying to paint like a pretty picture because it has not made it through. It's in phase 2 of clinical trials. It probably won't be on the market for at least a couple of years at this point. But at least from anecdote from people I've talked to that have used it, and it seems like it has a lot more efficacy than even the tirzepatide. And that's coming from a lot of people that I've talked to that have used it.
Okay. And circling back to our cost thing. So we talked about kind of like health costs and whatnot before.
This is like the actual financial cost of
it. And a lot of people are not even aware. So can you speak a little bit more to that, just of what the price tag looks like, and even how to get a prescription if somebody is a good candidate for that?
Well, luckily it's not hard to get a prescription because everybody and their mom is selling this shit right now. So because it's a high profit moneymaker right now. So it ain't hard. You just have to type it in, where do I get it? And you'll find like a billion people around your neighborhood. But the problem is that if you don't have diabetes, it most likely is not covered by insurance. And the out-of-pocket cost for Ozempic or for Mounjaro, I mean, it can range, but I've seen numbers as high as $800 a month. And we're talking on a medication that might cost $5 to $6.
I've heard even higher than that from
I've heard. This is kind of like the bell curve average of what I'm hearing is like around that 800 number, which is crazy. It's crazy to me, and it's like, how many sessions with a dietitian or a personal trainer could you, or even a therapist for that matter, could you afford if you were just reallocating your money? But the cool thing about illegal stuff is illegal stuff tends to be a little bit cheaper because the insurance ain't getting their piece of it yet. So with the retatrutide, and I'm not telling you guys to go try to find retatrutide, but it also is everywhere. It runs about less than $100 a month for this same exact stuff. Actually, arguably a better version of the stuff because it hasn't made it through clinical trials, because it's sold black market. It's very easy to find.
Okay, so here's something else I want to speak to, because this, I think, in anything that has to do with fat loss and fitness, most people don't look at long term. So even if somebody is on, for valid reason, whether it's health reasons, obesity, etc., they're on a GLP-1 of some sort, like Ozempic, Mounjaro, whatever. What's like the next phase? Or what if they lose the weight they want? I don't even know about when and if it's safe to get off, what the plan is after that, things people might need to implement once they are off.
So the downside with the clinical trials thus far is they don't have long-term studies. I mean, they have long-term studies of use, but they don't have long-term studies of what happens when you go off of it. So all we're left with is a ton of anecdote. And what we're seeing, at least with the Ozempic and the Mounjaro crowd, is that when they go off, there's actually a rebound effect. So like if it suppresses your appetite, providing there's no like gastric impairment, meaning you didn't have any like actual nerve damage to your stomach, it seems like it's like, okay, if someone is like, if this is food noise coming into your ears and someone's, earmuffs, and then all of a sudden they take them off, but they also put in like high def speakers into your ears, so you're getting blasted with food noise. So like for me, if I'm like always like an 8 out of 10 with food noise, and Ozempic pulls me down to like a 4 out of 10, I would jump to like a 12 out of 10. So there's like a rebound of appetite, which tends to come with an associated incredible amount of weight gain, just like every other fat loss, like fat. If we think about it in terms of like when you did like Atkins or when you did the HCG or enter any crazy diet, the peanut butter diet, like whatever it was, there's a rapid weight loss. Anytime there's rapid weight loss, there tends to always be a rapid weight gain on the back end of that if the lifestyle things were not put in place. So if I was to make a suggestion, how I would go about it is I wouldn't stay on high doses all the time. I mean, the doctor might start you, and we're using, let's use like the Mounjaro dosings or even the retatrutide dosings. I think those are a little bit more reasonable. It's starting around that 1.5 milligram per week mark. And then you will build a tolerance to that. So therefore, like you take it for a couple weeks, just like caffeine, your body you'll start to have the response, and you have to start tapering that dose up to get the same response. But at a certain point, you're going to reach, like, the max dosing is like 12 milligrams a week. And at a certain point, like, you can't just stay on 12 milligrams a week. A lot more side effects are going to come in because the higher dose, obviously, the higher risk of side effects. So I would periodize it throughout the year. I'd have periods where I'm like, just like in normal life, I'd have periods where I'm trying to intentionally diet and periods when I'm intentionally trying to raise my calories and intentionally gain muscle. And I would use that timing to, if I'm dieting down, to taper the dose up. So I'm, helping with the appetite side. But then as I'm trying to raise calories, taper that dose back down so you can resensitize yourself to the medication again. And then at some point, if you want to come off, so far they're saying that it's incredibly safe to stay on it forever. But I also think that's a really convenient business strategy.
Right. It's kind of like my
the way that I would do it is I would taper off slowly. I would get myself down to the minimum effective dose and even go below that, like even a microdose style. And then eventually just wean off. And it might take 6-ish months to do this, but don't go off cold turkey. You definitely wouldn't want to do that. It's like going off even SSRIs cold turkey, or like other medications that you should like taper dosing down, or you will get that rebound effect, which is not fun.
And so in lieu of that, what would you suggest to somebody who might be on it or maybe wanting to take it, but hopefully to get off of it? What should they have in place as they're trying to get off to support them from a healthy lifestyle perspective, accountability, so that they're not there by themselves? And
well, I would really hope that as they're getting onto it, that they would be already thinking about, okay, what does my eating style look like? Am I eating small, frequent meals throughout the day? Right? It doesn't have to be, you won't be able to eat large meals on either one of these things.
You're right.
But let's say you're eating small, frequent meals a day. You've already built that habit of prepping your food, making sure you have good, healthy food with you. Low calorie dense foods. So we're thinking high protein, high fiber, stuff that's going to satiate you anyway. We have to put that in place first. Second, we also have to make sure that we have a good exercise regimen with a good dose of resistance training in it. Frequently.
So not just walking and cardio.
No, but that would be very cool
it's
too.
Better than nothing,
you kind of want a little bit of both.
Yeah,
you want a little bit of both. The walking and cardio is not going to do anything to help with muscle loss,
right?
Or even the bone density loss.
I'm just trying to be clear because a lot of times women, they just want to go walk.
Yes, and that burns calories. I'm not going to lie. I walk all the time, but it's not going to do anything to help with bone density or muscle loss. So I would make sure that that's in place. I would also, with that, I would try to make sure that I had some social support in place too.
Yeah.
So whether that's a workout partner, an accountability buddy, like somebody that you're checking in with frequently, a coach, somebody that can help you walk through these steps. Have those in place before you even decide to taper down. And if you're on the medication already and you're already losing a significant amount of weight, it's probably it's time to act. Like you need to do this now so you can hopefully attenuate any more muscle loss.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, those were the big points for me. Is there anything else that maybe you would want to share that would be super important?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I would say is, as you can tell, I'm not anti these GLP-1s. My sister's lost over 100 pounds on them very successfully, and she's had trouble in the past. I have plenty of colleagues and people that I know that have done really well on them. I've also known a lot of people that have just shit the bed, have not done well at all. They have crashed and burned, they've lost all their muscle, and then they've rebounded off and gained everything back. Just it's very similar to any other fat loss drug. So I'm very non-committal to am I for it, am I against it. I see it the same way as I see any supplement or any training program. It's the right tool for the right job. So I think if you're making a decision on whether or not to use this medication, it's not a moral decision. It should just be a wise decision, an informed decision. So if you have questions, make sure to reach out to somebody who knows this stuff. Who you can reach out to us. You can reach out to. I honestly would not reach out to your physician, because you don't ask your butcher if you should buy beef. They're gonna be buy beef, right? It's their job to sell you beef, and they're gonna make money every time you buy the damn stuff. So I would reach out to somebody who knows a lot about it. Maybe talk to a few people that have used it, that have some personal experience around it, and just know that this is one piece in the puzzle of creating sustainable change long term. The other pieces are far more important, which are nutrition, lifestyle, and training. Like those are going to be always the foundation.
Awesome. Well, we hope this has been like super informative. If you or somebody that you love has been on the fence, or maybe you're taking it right now and you needed a little bit more background information, we hope that this was helpful. Feel free to share this video if it hits home for somebody that you think needs to see it. But as always, we're here to educate and help people make the best decisions to live your best life. You got anything else you want to add to that?
No. Go lift weights and eat protein.
You guys have got this. Until next time.